Yeah, think about it as a pizza pie. You're gonna take half that pizza for, your VIP guy over there, and then the rest are gonna go to everyone else. So
Yep.
that's the worst analogy I put on this episode, but yeah, that's what it actually.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us on the In the Trenches Roundtable. Today's episode, we're going to be covering a feature focus, and specifically, we'll be talking about the allocate space feature, which allows you to prioritize what cameras record longer. We have our awesome panel of experts here with us today.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. And without further ado, I think we should just jump right in. I want to first cover, how do cameras record normally? Like, if I don't know how cameras record, one of our experts, can you help me out? How do they record?
There's a VHS tape, and
Hey, they once did, right?
yeah.
Back in the day.
All right. So normally you've got a bunch of different cameras. Let's say you've got 12 cameras on a 12 terabyte hard drive inside of your recording device, like an NVR or a DVR. And typically, what's going to happen is that 12 terabytes is basically going to go 1 terabyte for each of your 12 cameras. But what if one of those cameras is more important? And that's the feature we're talking about today.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like out of the box, all of my cameras will record the same amount of time. So what exactly does this quota feature do for me?
So, are all of your cameras throughout your facility equal? Like, are certain ones potentially more important than others? Probably. You
Yeah.
could probably, create a tier chart of importance of cameras somewhere.
Yeah.
And something like your front desk at a hotel is probably going to be a little bit more important than maybe your garbage and dumpster area camera. So you could prioritize based on the space how much you want to do. So in practice, what that says is instead of everything being equally 14 days or however you get on your hard drive, you could set it up to where, the front desk camera gets, say, 30 days of footage, and maybe you sacrifice the storage amount on the dumpster camera in that case. And I think that just allows you to prioritize the most important footage at your facility, basically.
Okay, so if I'm looking to maybe, like, let's say I run a retail store, and maybe I want to prioritize the cameras that are around the counter in the POS system.
Yeah, you probably have an increased need there to be able to go back to combat fraud. And so you may want to say, the cameras on the back of the door that may be watching the entrances that the employees come to, or the ones on the front. Maybe that's not as important. I want to retain the ones that are looking at the POS system for longer than other cameras. Let me give you another example. Like we all deal with regulated data at some point if we're a business owner. So we've got files on employees, they have social securities numbers on them, they might have HIPAA data in terms of like the insurance that somebody has, et cetera. We want to make sure that wherever that's stored, whether that's a digital medium with a computer or a server inside a server closet, or that's an old-fashioned desk drawer with somebody's files and paperwork, we want to make sure that nobody's accessing that for longer than they're supposed to. And we may have a regulation that says we need to look back at that a certain amount of time, but we don't have that for, let's say, the door on the front, entrance that somebody's coming through. So we may have a regulation that says I need 30 days of storage for this situation. We don't necessarily need it for 30 days of storage for everything in the building. And so it's a really good way to resolve some regulatory issues as well.
That makes sense. I could see it also from like a liability standpoint, right? If I had cameras covering a stairwell, maybe I'd choose to record for those cameras longer, maybe, or allocate more space there.
Yeah, the possibilities are almost endless. I just helped or talked to this feature about somebody who's IT closets. They really needed, to retain 90 days on anything that's in that IT room. And the rest of the cameras, they were fine with, a week or two. They didn't really have that priority. So anything you can imagine, and this is a feature, reason why we did this episode is because most people have no idea this feature even exists. So it's something that if you don't think it exists, you kind of don't even think that way. You think, well, if I need 90 days in the IT closet, I'm going to need 90 days everywhere. And the cost from
Right.
90 days everywhere versus 90 days for 2 cameras is, very dramatic. So this feature can save you, a lot of money, but also make it to where your system is performing, as you want. So
Makes sense. So is this something that's fairly easy to set up? Is it not so easy? How
Oh,
exactly do you set this
absolutely.
feature out?
Yeah, so under the hard disk section of the recorder, whether you're going through the web portal or through the local interface, you're going to see a section for allocate space. And from there, you just select which camera you want. And based off of your calculation, whether we helped you or you just went to the website and calculated it yourself, you can do a maximum recording space for each camera that you want to set up that way.
Mm,
So yeah, the important distinction there is that this is done by storage space and not necessarily days. So you do have to calculate out, well, if I want 90 days in my IT closet, what does that look like? So you'd have to calculate, okay, I've got the Warrior 8.0 V3 camera, that's a 4K camera, 20 frames per second. And you can throw it into our calculator, and you can calculate it there. And if you're not sure and you want to make, and you need us to give you some guidance on that, give us a call. We'll be happy to help tell you kind of what that range looks like as well. So
Right. And then any space left over from the hard drive would be available to the rest of the cameras that are on the system that you have not set up a particular maximum record space and gigabytes for. So, whatever is left, the other cameras will utilize.
the scraps.
Yeah.
Yeah, think about it as a pizza pie. You're gonna take half that pizza for, your VIP guy over there, and then the rest are gonna go to everyone else. So
Yep.
that's the worst analogy I put on this episode, but yeah, that's an analogy.
We're not done yet.
Yeah.
no, we're not done yet. Exactly. Okay, so if I am a client and I have a need where this might fit, what are some of the other things I should be considering?
Not a whole lot. I mean, just understand that feature exists. That you don't necessarily have to equally distribute that pizza. That you can decide to give certain chunks of pizza to the rest of them. I'm quitting that pizza analogy. It works, but
I like the pizza analogy. I think it's pretty
It
good.
does work. And just make sure you have enough space for the rest of your cameras as well. I know that it's very tempting to just be like, oh, I need to use, 75% of this hard drive for this one camera. But if you only have that one hard drive in your system, you only have 25% left. So maybe look at, getting a larger hard drive for that bay, or maybe adding another hard drive to other bays that are available, just so you're not missing out on footage, because I would hate for somebody to only have 3 days worth of footage when they're expecting a week. So,
Makes sense.
just make sure
Yeah,
you do
and
the calculations right. And as always,
another good way to think about this would be that regulated spaces and let's take the idea of like a warehouse. There are parts of your warehouse that are going to be the product that is moving in and out constantly, and there are parts of your warehouse that is going to be less frequently accessed, that is more your bulk storage. How frequently do you go in the place where you're shipping and going every day? Well, you're doing that every day. You don't need a lot of retention. How frequently you go and look at your bulk storage? You'll want to use that calculator to make sure that you are exceeding that, because if somebody's only checking physically to see did product move in and out of here in an unexpected way once every month, you want to make sure you have a month for those particular cameras. And so you want to match the calculator to your operational need on how frequently am I looking at this particular asset to make sure it's moving in and out, or how frequently am I required by a regulation to make sure that somebody's not, especially in the case of digital media, copying this asset, which is a lot harder to figure out if it's left the building.
Mm-hmm. I think, Matt, you kind of start bringing up an important point and notion is that, like, when it comes to storage space in general, it's totally customizable. And this feature allows you to really take that to a more granular level.
Yeah, and really be able to match your recording settings to your operational realities. There are parts of your building, there are parts of your business that you utilize daily. And there are
Right.
parts of your building and parts of your business that are a lot less frequent. and that where something might take a little bit longer to find out if it has been damaged or stolen or copied.
Makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So back to a more technical question, and maybe this is a silly question, but it just got me thinking when we were talking about this. How does RAID factor into this feature? Is this you choose this feature or RAID, or could you set up a RAID while using this feature?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In the end, a RAID just takes your group of hard drives and creates what the system would see as a single hard drive space with however much storage is available to it. It all depends on what size drives and what size RAID or what RAID type you choose. So if you have 3 hard drives and a RAID 5, only 2 of those are going to be available for the storage because it needs a third one for the redundancy. If a drive were to fail, it would, you replace the bad drive. So you take that whole 20 terabytes and you calculate based off of that.
Well, experts, any final thoughts that we should be left with when we talk about allocate space?
No, I think, hopefully as you look at your system, whether you've had and this is something I will add, this is something you can change on the fly too. So like, obviously, if you've had your system for years, you can still go in right now and change that setting if you'd like to. Obviously, it will take time for that to fully kind of cycle and actually divvy it up correctly, but because it has to overwrite onto it. But this is something that you can choose to do whether you've had your system for 5 years or if you've had your system for 5 weeks. So if you're watching this video and you go, hey, I already have my system, I guess I can't do it, make sure you know that you can set this whenever you basically like. So
Awesome. Yeah, all right. So that'll wrap this episode at the end of the trenches, this feature focused episode on allocate space, which again allows you to prioritize what cameras record longer. Please check out some of the additional videos that dive into some of the specifics on some topics we covered, like RAID and just generally how cameras record. Also, feel free to reach out to support or sales at SAW. We're happy to help answer any generic questions or questions about a system you might already have. Thank you so much to the experts for joining us again today. Really appreciate all the insight. Always helpful. Stay tuned and tune in next week for another episode of the In the Trenches. And if there's something that you want to see us cover, leave a comment down below. Let us know. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, everybody. See you next time.
yeah.
Right. Bye.